that the United States has, believe me, backing, and we have strong backing. We are.
And in 2017, Trump and Sisi met in Saudi Arabia, posing in an iconic image that left no question about the fact that Sisi is just another US puppet. So Mubarak was aligned with the US. Morsi was aligned with the US. And Sisi as well. And the Egyptian people.
احنا عايزين نفهم، نتفرج على التلفزيون نلاقي مصر فيينا، ننزل في الشارع نلاقيها بنت عم الصومال. بالله عليك قول لي ايه اللي حصل وايه الحل؟ الناس اللي فوق اللي رايحين يحتفلوا، لا مؤاخذة رايحين يحتفلوا جايبين 38 وفد يصرفوا عليهم 25 مليون جنيه والمواطن الفقير مش لاقي كيلو الرز في الشارع. هل ده يرضي ربنا؟ ده ربنا يوم القيامة هيجيب الناس يقول أين ملوك الأرض وحكامها لمن الملك اليوم؟ عشان الناس اللي مش لاقية والناس التعبانة.
O Arabs, why are you ahead of you? You are not free to choose your rulers. Rather, they are chosen for you. You may be allowed to do smaller changes, but the bigger picture always stays the same. Don't you see that you have been fooled? You have been presented a glitzy image of democracy that brings you freedom and happiness, when in reality the people in the very country that has put the idea of democracy in your heads are not free.
They talk about how we have freedom of choice. You know, we have freedom of choice. Yeah, very limited. It's an important thing, limited choice. Two political parties, essentially, two. Big media companies, 5, 6.
Max.
Yeah. Oil companies, down to 3 now, I think, overall, 3 or 4. Banks, the big brokerage houses, the big accounting firms. All of the things that are important, reduced in choice. Newspapers in a city, how many? Used to be 3, 4, now it's 1 or 2. They're owned by the same people, and they also own a radio station and a TV station.
US citizens are ruled by a small oligarchy in a country that presents only an illusion of freedom of choice, while in reality all the choices have already been made. In 2014, Princeton University conducted the biggest empirical study on the people's influence on actual politics in the US. They looked at more than 20 years worth of data and proved what most Americans already knew. They write in their study, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. This means that it has been proven that the number of Americans for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. The influence is near zero. So here we are in one of the biggest, most outspoken democracies in the world, and people have absolutely no say in what is going on. This was obvious in 2003, when more than 1 million citizens went onto the streets all around America to protest against the Iraq War.
The American people do not want this!
And Iraq was attacked anyway.
You know, sides of protest is like deciding, well, I'm going to decide policy based upon a focus group.
But what does have influence then, if it's not the people? The Princeton University study said, above all, it is money. While the opinions of the bottom 90% of income earners in America have statistically no significant impact, economic elites are the ones who determine what is really happening in the country. This is not an unfortunate development, but it is inherent in the system itself. In the so-called American democracy, anyone is free to nominate himself for president, but without financial funding, they run absolutely no chance of being elected. It takes around $1 billion to become a president of the United States. That is a lot of money. Members of Congress spend 30 to 70% of their work hours raising money for their campaigns. Their entire job revolves around how to gather money to stay in office, rather than about how to improve the condition of their people. Almost every single modern-day president was a millionaire. At the time of his election in 2008, Barack Obama was worth an estimated $3.6 million. George W. Bush was worth an estimated $11 million at the time of his election. Bill Clinton was worth around $1 million when he was elected president. Ronald Reagan, the Republican former Hollywood actor, was worth $4 million when he was elected to the White House in 1980. And so elections are a game of the powerful, and those who do not have money do not stand a chance to be elected, even if they might have great ideas and qualities. Democracy in the US has become the dictatorship of the richest. This is not an unfortunate development, but the system has in fact been designed to be like that. Imagine a world in which 1% of the population own more than half of all the riches and 90% own barely nothing. Now imagine that the very rich try to keep control over the average population by naked force. It would not be long until the poor would rise up against them, which is why the elite has to disguise their power and control. They have to set up front organizations, big corporations, and political parties that preserve the illusion of choice, so that whenever the people get agitated with their rulers, as they eventually will, they can throw the supposed rascals out at the next election.
Because you know what, folks? We're going to take our country back from these people. We're going to take it back. These are bad, bad people. And we're going to take our country back from these people.
This way, the population gets rid of their frustration. But what they do not see is that the so-called opposition is controlled by the exact same people like their predecessors.
Carroll Quigley was a professor of history at Georgetown University, and actually he